Hi, everybody, and welcome back. It's Friday. No news flash there, but it's always just nice to say, especially when it's been as beautiful as today has. But there's change coming. We'll talk about that and how tomorrow will be another beautiful day in the neighborhood, and then some cool air thereafter, and a little bit of a mess in the middle. I can sum up tonight's program, I think, with a couple of words: informational and entertaining. A bit of a history lesson will precede a report about a local Korean War veteran being bestowed with the Ambassador of Peace Award. And Kyle Douglas has a new cut. Well, he has a new video to go with his cut, Clean Hands. It's just great, and we're going to go out on that note tonight and share it with you for the weekend. With that said, all I have time for between that is some announcements on our calendar and a few other important things to mention. So let's just dive right in. I want to run through community calendar announcements right now rather quickly. The story patch, the reunion, the presentation of the reunion over at the Oscar. Well, this is the last weekend to see it at that location tomorrow night at 7, and then Sunday at 3. You can call 789-9108 to get your tickets. And I just came in the office to find this in my door. You're invited to come and watch a Christian music come to life, or watch Christian music come to life. I'm reading it for the first time, can you tell? It's being performed by their skit and drama team tomorrow evening at 7. They're going to have some mini plays set to Christian music, old and new, that will make you laugh, cry, and be blessed. They pray that you make the choice to come and join them. The performers' ages are 5 to 72. Don't miss this free event at the Sagersville Trinity Full Gospel Church on Burning Fork Road. And once again, that's tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Sounds wonderful. They hope that you will enjoy them. Special singers include Kelsey and Donnie, the Nobles. They'll be there. A big yard sale, a church yard sale tomorrow at the Lakefront Church of God over on Route 30. They're also going to have a hot dog dinner and a bake sale to follow. All proceeds will go to support the Water into Wine food pantry. Starts at 9 o'clock tomorrow at the church. Tomorrow evening, a fun horse show put together by the Elk Creek Free Will Baptist Church down at Morgan County Equestrian Park. Now, it starts at 4. Registration starts at 4. The show will start at 5. 33 classes, as I see. Admission is just $5. Kids 8 and under get in free. All proceeds going towards the Elk Creek Free Will Baptist Church's building fund. And I've just learned the Sagersville City Council, and I've already marked it on my calendar so as not to forget, have called for a regular session meeting this coming Monday at City Hall, meeting time at 7 p.m. Items on the agenda: second vote on setting the tax rate, and collection for delinquent tax, second reading as well. They'll talk about trick or treat, setting that. It's hard to think it's already time to talk about that, but indeed it is. Some other items on the agenda as well. We'll have a camera. I also have reports already filmed from the fiscal court meeting from yesterday and the Board of Education meeting last night. I was there at both of those, and we'll pick up that coverage on Monday's program. With that said, here are some funeral service announcements before we go any further. They're brought to you by the McGoffin County Funeral Home. 68-year-old David Carroll Howes of Sagersville passed away on Wednesday of this week. He's survived by his wife, Joanne Sparks Howes, son, Paul David Howes, and daughters, Deborah Carroll Cole and Jennifer Ann Gasparic. Services are going to be held tomorrow morning at 11 at the New Life Worship Center, where visitation continues this evening at the McGoffin County Funeral Home, but services tomorrow are at New Life Worship. 74-year-old Vernie Hall Prater of Jackson passed away on Wednesday of this week. Survived by husband Woodrow Dykes and second husband Woodrow Prater, as well as sons Doug, Leroy, and then stepsons Larry and Harold Prater. Funeral services are set for tomorrow at 2 at the McGoffin County Funeral Home. She's also survived, my apologies, by daughters Rhonda McGuinn, Kay Russell, and stepdaughter Kathy Cole, stepdaughter Juanita Prater, Bonnie Stamper, Malvie Montgomery, and Eloise Marshall. Services once again Saturday at 2. Ben Franklin Arnett, 50 of Kane Road, passed away earlier this week, the son of Gloria Cronk Arnett and the late Benjamin Arnett. Besides his mother, he's survived by his daughters Emily and Lindsay. Visitation will be after 6 o'clock tomorrow and prior to Sunday services that will start at 11, all from the McGoffin County Funeral Home, and in lieu of flowers, the family requests you make contributions to the Shriners Children's Hospital. And we have learned of the passing of our dear friend Leola Cole. 81-year-old Leola Bailey Cole of Royalton Road passed away on the 18th, married to Oscar Cole, who preceded her in death. She's survived by her son Kenneth Scott, with visitation to begin Sunday after 5 and prior to Monday morning services that will begin at 11. Visitation and services both from the McGoffin County Funeral Home, and burial will take place later at the Highlands Memorial Park. And lastly, an announcement in loving memory of Sudie Hollers, with love from her daughter Brenda, grandchildren and great-grandchildren. To get high-speed internet on their state-of-the-art fiber optic network for all of your home and business solutions, or to watch TV without a contract on over 200 digital channels with superb quality, or stay connected with family and friends with 24/7 telephone service you can always depend on, contact Foothills Broadband today. Or just click on their link to the right to find out how they're working to provide the latest in communications at affordable prices with exceptional service at Foothills Broadband. A bit of a history lesson precedes our next report. The report actually begins with a son researching his father's service. The story goes back to the beginning of the Korean War, about his experiences as a soldier in the Heavy Weapons Company, 2nd Battalion, 5th Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division, where he was among 41 captured prisoners of war and one of only 5 to survive a war crime of unthinkable depths and an atrocity that was a largely forgotten part of what's considered to be a forgotten war, wedged between America's biggest war, World War II, and Vietnam, our longest war. Korea sometimes gets overlooked. Even before World War II had ended, the United States and the former Soviet Union, previously allied against Nazi Germany, had grown increasingly suspicious of one another's motives. The Cold War, as it would later be known, gained momentum in 1946 and 47 with a series of local conflicts in Eastern Europe, Iran, Greece, and Turkey. The Berlin Crisis later in 1948 in particular led many to fear a major East-West conflict was just simply unavoidable. And in the midst of this increased tension and international uncertainty, the Soviets, in August of 1949, they exploded their first nuclear weapon. A mere 6 months later, the Communists took control of mainland China, and the Truman administration responded by formally committing the United States to a policy of containing the spread of communism. In Korea, the lines had already been drawn, with Soviet-backed forces in the north and U.S.-backed forces in the south of the peninsula. Ongoing United Nations efforts to peacefully reunite the country had stalled. And then in May of 1948, the South Koreans elected Syngman Rhee, president of the Republic of Korea. The Soviets soon after created and recognized the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea, and the line separating the two countries was the UN-sanctioned 38th parallel. By early 1950, President Kim Il-sung, who had risen to power in the north, was determined on reunifying Korea by force, and the two sides started sparring along the border. And then war began. On June the 25th, a Sunday in 1950, artillery shells fell on Kaesong, the ancient Korean capital. North Korean forces followed with a full-scale invasion across the 38th parallel into South Korea, and hours later, in an emergency session at the United Nations, the Security Council passed a resolution calling for a ceasefire and immediate withdrawal. The North Korean army just ignored that, though. They ignored the resolution and continued its rapid drive towards Seoul as shattered South Korean units fell back or were captured. A second UN resolution called for international support and direct military involvement to restore the peace. U.S. President Harry S. Truman wasted no time in responding, and on the 26th of June, he authorized General of the Army Douglas MacArthur to launch air and naval attacks on the Korean Peninsula and to deploy U.S. ground troops to the port of Busan on the southernmost tip of the peninsula. The ground forces included the 1st Cavalry Division, the 7th, 24th, and 25th Infantry Divisions. But the suddenness of the events quickly revealed their main problem, the striking unpreparedness of U.S. troops about to go into combat. 5 years of occupational duties in Japan, military budget cuts, and rapid demobilization following World War II had left these units seriously understrengthened, poorly trained, and inadequately armed. By the end of July, General Walton Walker was orchestrating a last-stand defense along the 140-mile line known as the Pusan Perimeter. Through courage, skill, and sheer determination, they held the line through mid-September. As the situation improved, plans were being made for a counteroffensive, and against the advice of perhaps most, General MacArthur came up with a daring plan to break out of Pusan with a turning movement resulting in a surprise amphibious landing at the port of Incheon just west of Seoul. A tremendous gamble involving a great many difficulties, one that was launched on September the 15th, and one that would pay off. Incheon marked a stunning success. In the days that followed, the port was secured, Seoul was liberated, and North Korean forces cut off from their own base were being defeated by United Nations troops on many fronts. By the end of September of 50, the North Korean army in the south was virtually shattered, and the border along the 38th parallel had been restored. But later on October on the 25th, the first Chinese communist soldier was captured, and with that, the U.S. and its allies were faced with a whole new war. The Chinese then got heavily involved, launched devastating attacks throughout the month of November, with only bitter cold and more intense fighting to follow. The spring and the summer of 1951 saw both sides getting into a routine, a stalemate of sorts, intense fighting for strategic positions. And that's where we got names that will go into the history books and last forever in our minds, such as Heartbreak Ridge, Old Baldy, Pork Chop Hill, and others. In July that summer, as the fighting continued, the first peace talks began in North Korea and continued for a very slow 2 years after, until an agreement was reached in the spring of 1953. On July the 27th of that year, the armistice was signed and the guns became silent, bringing a close to the Korean War. However, there was another pivotal, albeit brutal, part of the war that there is little known about, but one that illustrates the atrocities and lengths to which the communists would go, and how perhaps its only American survivor alive today is James Melvin Rudd of Sagersville, just recently awarded the Korean Ambassador for Peace Award, an expression of appreciation of the South Korean government to United States soldiers who helped them avoid a life of communism like the North. The battle was known as the Hill 303 Massacre, a war crime during the Korean War on August the 17th of 1950, in which 41 captured United States POWs were shot and killed by North Korean Army soldiers during a smaller engagement during the Battle of Pusan Perimeter. The 2nd Battalion, 5th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division was surrounded by North Korean troops crossing the Noktong River at Hill 303. Most of the U.S. troops were able to escape except one platoon of mortar operators captured by North Korean troops. They held Americans on the hill, then tried to move them across the river, but were held back by counterattacks. U.S. forces started to advance as North Korea started to retreat and then started killing off United States troops that they feared would slow them down, an atrocity that provoked a response from both sides of the conflict, with the United States broadcasting messages and dropping leaflets demanding that North Korea's senior command soldiers would be held accountable. 41 of our troops were tied and bound together and fired upon until they fell, left to die and decompose right where they had stood. But 5 souls would survive, shielded only by fellow soldiers from bullets meant for them as well. Melvin Rudd was one of those 41 prisoners of war, tied together, their hands bound behind their backs with their shoelaces stripped of all their belongings, and then sprayed with bullets from pistols and rifles. He was one of 5 to survive, and perhaps the last known survivor today. This photograph shows Rudd and a fellow soldier, a fellow survivor, still stunned after the bloody massacre, just shortly after they were able to escape. And this American-shot video, part of a documentary that was actually shown to the American public to display the atrocities of the Korean War, shows Melvin Rudd here in the front, along with Corporal Day of Texas, another survivor of the Hill 303 massacre, as they're identifying the bodies of the victims for the Army's Graves Registration Service. Now, fast forward many years. Melvin Rudd returned home, raised a family, and his service was largely forgotten or never known by the public or nation at large. The 50-53 Korean conflict is often called the Forgotten War, and the massacre of American POWs at Hill 303 is one of the many largely forgotten incidents from those chaotic early months. There was never a full accounting of what happened, nor a recognition of all the POWs. All those decades, the 5 survivors themselves didn't know how many actually made it out alive, until Army Captain David Kangas of Greenville, New Hampshire, a graduate of Fitchburg State College, heard about the mass execution in 1985 when he was posted near Hill 303. He started asking around, started doing some extensive research because he found it so fascinating, but it was stymied by the fact that official records of the massacre were incomplete. The government documents building in St. Louis burned down in the 60s, taking records of that day with it. But nearly a decade after he started his search, he found out that there were 3 survivors still alive, and he would meet them. They would actually meet each other. 67-year-old Roy Manning, who was shot 13 times, Private Frederick M. Ryan, and Private James M. Rudd of Sagersville, all first awarded the POW Medal and other honors in 1994. And just 5 years after that, in 1999, these photos were taken on the 49th anniversary of the outbreak of the Korean War. The 3 mortar platoon members of the Army's 1st Cavalry Division were invited back to Korea, with Rudd unable to make the trip. However, 2 of them spent hours in the sun and ultimately found the exact spot where they were shot and left to die. Now fast forward to just earlier this month. After researching for years the service of his father, Steve Rudd came into contact with a woman by the name of Susan Key, a woman dedicated to honoring Korean War veterans and a Korean-American writer and author of an upcoming book about Korean War veterans. She says she's working to inspire everyone to learn about the Korean War and the great sacrifices and service of our Korean War veterans from America, with a goal to share as many of their personal stories as possible and to see that they're honored for their services. Her parents were young teenagers during the Korean War. She was born in Seoul, South Korea, and immigrated to the United States with her family as a young child. And she says that after much prayer and soul-searching, she realized she had a great debt of gratitude to pay to the American Korean War veterans who saved Korea and ultimately gave her her life and freedom she has today. And over the past few years, she's met with hundreds of Korean War veterans and interviewed many of them to hear their personal stories. The story of Mr. Melvin Rudd, James Melvin Rudd, she was able to obtain over a telephone interview, a phone conversation that was subsequently followed up by Rudd being awarded the Korean Ambassador for Peace Medal recently by members of our local DAV Chapter 15 in Magoffin County.
I am so glad that the Korean people respect the Americans that went over there, because they had nothing and they'd still be living today if you had them under the communists. And it just makes me feel good, and these other veterans out here too, that there's no single veteran, there's no single branch of service that did it up. We all did. And I respect the South Korean people. That makes 3 letters I've gotten from kids when we went through their village. And we tried not to harm the children, the old people. We respect it. The North Koreans are their own people. They slaughtered their own people, but one because they was Christians, some of them. Another because they respected the United States. We go through villages, they'd be hundreds, and so probably thousands of their own people. There was no tribe. The communist head of the communist government, Kim Il-sung, he's dead now, and if we could have got a hold of him, he wouldn't have died naturally. We don't know how good we've got it in this country. We really don't. If we never, I didn't, and we're so fortunate that we've got men and women that will voluntarily go when they're called, or if they're called to go. And I'm not saying that because I'm putting a feather in my cap. I'm saying it because I need from right there. And if I was able to go again, I would go again.
And just as clear as his love of country is, and its servicemen and women, are the countless accounts of being a young man in a war up against a great many odds, which were all ultimately overcome, but with great sacrifice. While I'm sure anyone would be hard-pressed to get him to admit it, certainly and without a doubt, an American hero, and now an ambassador of peace. I wish to thank our local DAV. I will be sending out a word of thanks to Susan Key, Steve Rudd, and his family for sharing this story with us and allowing me to share it with you. And above all, for the service of Mr. James Melvin Rudd. To get high-speed internet on their state-of-the-art fiber optic network for all of your home and business solutions, or to watch TV without a contract on over 200 digital channels with superb quality, or stay connected with family and friends with 24/7 telephone service you can always depend on, contact Foothills Broadband today. Or just click on their link to the right to find out how they're working to provide the latest in communications at affordable prices with exceptional service at Foothills Broadband. 2 orders of business before I leave you for what's going to be at least half of a beautiful weekend. The other half not so bad either. Your forecast forthcoming right now. And following that, a little Clean Hands video as was just released by Kyle Douglas. Brought to you by Licking Valley RECC. Your forecast says if there's something you've been wanting to do all summer, you better get to it because this is the last weekend of it. Fall starts Wednesday. Beautiful day today, not a news flash. A low of 64 tonight, partly cloudy skies, and a light wind. A beautiful end to, once again, another beautiful day in the neighborhood. Now, while there are changes on the way and in store, it's not a major weather maker. Tomorrow, like today, low 80s, mostly sunny, nighttime lows right around 60. We've got a cold front coming that's really nothing going to give us much more than maybe some light winds and some light to maybe moderate showers. No storm activity, no heavy rainmaker either, and that will be late tomorrow evening for us here in the viewing area, I do believe. As for Sunday, you'll be left with some clouds that will linger on and definitely cooler air behind the front. 70 degrees Sunday. That 20% chance of showers will kind of linger around throughout the day as well, kind of hit and miss. Once it's gone on Monday, though, it's gone for a while. Actually, to sum up all of next week, I've got partly to mostly sunny skies, temperatures 73 on Monday to 76 on your Friday. Not too bad. Just one little bump in the middle of your weekend. It's also not a news flash that we're a fan and a friend of Kyle Douglas. His album's been out for a while to rave reviews, and he keeps making big strides in the music business down in Nashville, and some of those we'll be able to tell you about, I believe, very soon. For now, his second video has hit the airwaves. It goes along with Clean Hands, and keep in mind, this is a copy of a copy as far as the video is concerned. You can check it out on YouTube or find his Twitter page or find his Facebook page and get the direct link there if you want to see it in better resolution. The music, though, sounds just as good. Clean Hands by a friend, Kyle Douglas. Everyone, please enjoy your weekend. We'll see you back here Monday for more of Your News Today.
These 100 acres can bring me to my knees. As long as I'm down here, Lord, will you listen to me? I put my hands together to wash away the dirt, and it's a long way to heaven from down here on earth. When I lay me down to sleep and I pray my soul to keep, I've got clean hands, I've got clean hands. And if I die before I wake, I know my soul he will take, 'cause I've got clean hands, I've got clean Now there's mud in